second time. Philip Davies.
Thank you very much, Mr Deputy Speaker, and it's a pleasure, if I might say so, to see you in the chair. I would like to commend my honourable friend for Christchurch for not only a tremendous speech setting out his case, inarguable case, it seems to me, but also for the ferocious and tenacious way in which he's pursued this matter. I mean, he is like a dog with a bone, and I'm sure that victims of damage from the COVID vaccine are very grateful to have him as a champion for their situation. Mr Deputy Speaker, I would actually ask he pointed out, I'm a co-sponsor of the bill, and so I support it wholeheartedly, but I would also like to encourage him, if I might add, to perhaps even think about extending the bill's scope a bit further, which would be also not just dealing with the damage that's been caused by the vaccines, but also to seek to try and prevent some of the damage from happening in the first place, because obviously once people have been severely disabled or in some cases sadly died as a result of the vaccine, that's no comfort. We want to try and prevent that in the first place, and I think there's some things that could usefully be done to try and help in that regard too. Now, of course, the authorities love to play down the fact that some people have suffered adverse reactions to these COVID-19 vaccines. I'm sure many of us have had contact from constituents who have experienced serious symptoms following vaccination. I'm not talking about a sore arm, which many people suffered as a result of the vaccination. I'm talking about a range of life-changing conditions such as strokes, heart attacks, blood clots, to name a few. My honourable friend mentioned Anna Morris, KC, in her submission to the COVID inquiry. And as she said, these are not normal side effects anybody would reasonably expect from a pharmaceutical product. And I very much hope, Mr Speaker, when the Minister comes to respond to the debate, that she makes it clear on the record that she confirms that she and the government accept that some people have suffered adverse reactions to the COVID-19 vaccine. And in some cases, very serious adverse reactions, and in some cases, some people have died as a result of taking the vaccine. It's an opportunity for her today to make that clear on the record for everybody to hear. Now, I can anticipate her speech in some regards, Mr Deputy Speaker. She will no doubt say that, well, the vaccine programme was a great success, and for the vast majority of people, it gave them a great deal of benefit. Well, that's not the point in this particular case, Mr Deputy Speaker, as my honourable friend for Christchurch made out at the very start of his speech. Nobody's making that point, nobody's arguing about that. We're talking about here the small number of people who have suffered very badly, the small proportion of people, it's a large number, a small proportion of people who have suffered adverse reactions as a result of the COVID-19 vaccine. And that's what I hope she will address directly in her speech. Of course.
The point he makes is a very important one. And on the 1st of June 2022, in answer to a question as to whether the government accepts that some people have died as a direct result of having received a COVID-19 vaccine, the Minister's response was, the MHRA publishes a weekly report covering adverse reactions to approved COVID-19 vaccines, which are available on the following link.
Yeah, well, quite, Mr Deputy Speaker. My old friend is right, and therefore today gives the Minister the opportunity to make it unequivocally clear that the government does accept that that has happened. That would be a big step in the right direction, I think, and would at least give some comfort to those people who have felt ignored for far too long. But of course the authorities are playing down the adverse reactions that people have had from COVID vaccines because firstly they don't want to pay up, as my honourable friend has set out quite clearly in his remarks. But secondly, the other reason they don't want to is because it was they who pushed these products so strongly to the public in the first place. Or dare I say it, Mr Deputy Speaker, coerced the public into taking at the time. And of course it was coercion when this House back in July 2021 voted to mandate the vaccine for care workers. resulting in tens of thousands of hard-working carers leaving their jobs. We also came within an ace of mandating the vaccine for all health workers. And just think of the damage that would have been done with potentially 100,000 workers leaving the NHS on the back of that. And of course, in December 2021, this House voted for Plan B, which brought in vaccine passports for large gatherings, amongst other things. And as we knew then, and as we know now, the vaccine doesn't stop infection or transmission. There was no evidence base for the policy. There was no impact assessment either done of the policy. Thank goodness that ugliness that we saw in this House was short-lived. I was, and I still am, proud today to be one of the 126 who voted against that mandation. And of course, people were coerced in other ways. People were told you weren't allowed to go on a flight anywhere unless you'd had 2 vaccines. You weren't allowed to visit anywhere. Everything was done, in effect, to force people to take the vaccine. Now, whether that was in utilitarian terms, Mr Deputy Speaker, a good thing or a bad thing is neither here nor there with regard to my honourable friend's bill. What is it? What is here or there when it comes to my honourable friend's bill is that, given all of that, when people do have adverse reactions to the COVID vaccination, and in some cases very serious ones, and in some cases sadly people have died, given all of that, the government has an absolute duty to pay the appropriate compensation to people when they moved heaven and earth to force them to take it in the first place. Some cases against their will. They force people to take it, otherwise they would lose their jobs. The government has got a duty to do something here. It just isn't good enough where we are at the moment. I think it's worth noting how shocking the treatment of unvaccinated people became. Our policies led to untold damage to their livelihoods and mental health. Friends and family turned their backs on them because of the prevailing narrative in politics and the media that they must be bad people for making up their own mind about a personal medical intervention. I think my honourable friend, the member for Broxbourne, one of the greatest people in this House, Mr Deputy Speaker, summed it up best when he said, suggesting that these people who for whatever reason have chosen not to get vaccinated are somehow deserving of our bile is a disgrace. It does not reflect badly on them, it reflects badly on us. In black and white on the Pfizer website, you can read important safety information concerning their Pfizer-BioNTech COVID-19 vaccine. Myocarditis and pericarditis has occurred in some people who have received that product, most commonly in adolescent males aged between 12 and 17. They go on to say that the chance of this occurring is very low, which I'm sure the Minister will reiterate again today. But of course, the chances of somebody of that age suffering a serious illness from COVID is very low as well. The Minister might not be so keen to point that out, and Pfizer don't seem to point that out on their website, but we should make that clear too. I raise this because I've been rather alarmed to hear of a clinical trial for a Moderna mRNA COVID vaccine, which I hope the Minister will respond to in her remarks, involving healthy children aged 12 and up. This is not something in the past during the pandemic. This is something that's happening now. It has been approved by the MHRA and involves the Bradford Patient Recruitment Centre, which is on the edge of my constituency, so some of my constituents could potentially be involved. I wrote to the Health Research Authority in August to ask what ethical rationale there is for the inclusion of healthy children in this trial. Because, of course, it's known, and it has been for a long time, that healthy children are at a vanishingly small risk from COVID-19. They were at the height of the pandemic. They certainly are now. And so far, I have not yet received a coherent answer to that simple question. But it's come to my attention that the centre has been recruiting children for this trial using advertisements which have not been ethically approved as required by UK rules. Children can only be recruited to a clinical trial if they as an individual have some reasonable expectation of significant benefit, when balanced with the risks associated with their participation. Any potential benefits for adults that may flow from this is not good enough and does not trump that principle. So what is going on here, given that we quite clearly know that there cannot be expectation of significant benefits to a cohort of people who are not actually having significant risk? Why are these decisions being made? And it comes back to where I started at the start of my speech, that the authorities seem completely unable and in some cases unwilling to protect people, in this case children, from potential harm. The cost-benefit analysis, if it has been done, I'm not even sure it has been done, but if it has been done, it certainly doesn't appear to stack up. And so I'll finish by commending my honourable friend's recommendations for the vaccine damage bill. The government has a duty of care to these people who have been injured or lost loved ones to the vaccine, which they took because the government pressured them into doing so. It also has a duty to do everything it can to prevent harm from taking place to start with. Failing to act on this will only lead to more harm and further damage to the public's trust in authority. So I hope the Minister will, in her summing up, refer to what is happening in Bradford and why this particular trial is being allowed to go ahead. The authorities, Mr Deputy Speaker, at the time, during the pandemic, they didn't go big on warning people of the potential damage or adverse effects that could happen if they were to take the vaccine. They just were interested in coercing as many people as possible to take it. They've got to accept responsibility for those who are doing the right thing and have faced damage as a result. And I hope the government will put that right today.
Thank you, Mr Deputy Speaker. I too